I want to try to explain chakras because like I didn't understand chakras until like just now thinking about it this way because like I've been on the spiritual journey for like 8 years, but yet I learned about chakras. I understood kind of what they are, but I'm gonna break it down in English so maybe this will make more sense. That everything is about opening up your chakras. Like I think the reason why souls are on planet Earth is because this is the only place that we can like physical reality is the only place we can basically gain more control over our soul, gain more soul power based on putting the work in. So like the spiritual journey is work. Whether it's Hinduism, Buddhism, shamanism, or any of the other isms, right? Um, Even philosophy or any of the religions, right? They all take work because you have to do the practices. The soul, right, is in a body, and this body is like a machine that we are inside of. So this machine that we're in, we're not born with instructions on how to use this machine. We're taught a bunch of knowledge as kids from school, right, and our parents, but yet most people's parents did not teach them how to utilize the knowledge in their head, how to speak what's out of their mouth, right? If you have a thought in your head, you need to speak it out your mouth. Most people are not taught that. They're taught to basically shut up and listen type shit. So then they have an issue with, then they grow up and their throat chakra is closed. If they're told not to think outside the box or to just whatever, or if they were someone who was a follower and as a kid and not a leader, like I don't know if you ever heard that as a kid, your parents tell you don't be a follower, be a leader. um but if they're telling you that, that means you're already following what other people are doing, the way other people are thinking, the way whatever. So like your crown chakra and your basic way of thinking gets hijacked by the way other people think, by the way the society thinks, by if our society, like hundreds of years ago, our society said slavery was okay, and the majority of people were consciously okay with that because that's just the way the world was. There, it was in their idea, in their mind, that it was what it was, but that's what creates blockages in the crown chakra. All of these blockages, if you go down the line, your heart chakra gets blockages based on lack of love, right? Lack of self love, lack of getting love from your parents as a kid, lack of, right, all that, then that can close your heart chakra. And then you keep going down the line, right? The root chakra gets closed when we disconnect from the planet and we think that we are different from the planet. Like, in a sense, we are, but we're not, because we are not the body. We are the souls inside of the body, but we are still inside of the body. So the body comes from the same materials that Mother Earth comes from. Our soul or spirit, or whatever you want to call it, comes from something greater than where we are right now, something bigger, something more astral, something more, uh, extra dimensional, or something more brighter, right? Like the shadow comes from the light, but the shadow is only existing because of the light. So it's that thing, that our body and soul are on this yin and yang thing with each other, and this is just the reality that we're in. But we've been distracted for so long about what chakras are, because chakras turn people off. Like, it turned me off, right? When I was researching spirituality, if it wasn't for psychedelics, I would have been completely turned away from spirituality. Because the way these people talked about crystals, or the way these people talked about chakras, or the way these people talked about tarot reading, or the way these people talked about all this, it turned me away. Because I just was like, that doesn't sound legit to me, right? But the shamanic journey sounds so legit to me because you cannot deny what is here. That, shamanism has been here before any religion. Like, it was the first practice, basically. And it was the practice that was more natural to us because it's just what we naturally ended up doing. Eating plants, then eventually we eat plants that then give us visions, then we start worshiping those plants, but then eventually realize it's not about worshiping the plants as much as it's what's going on. Some of these plants can help with your crown chakra, some of these plants can help with your root chakra. Like, part of the Chinese, way, their Chinese medicines, right? How they have all these different herbs for their thing, and they've had that for ever, basically, right? But that it's based on this thing where they look at it like a yin and yang, drying and cooling, or like warming and cooling, or like there's this way that they look at the plants, and it's the shock. These ideas are good ideas to explain what is, but the problem is I think we're taking shit so literally that it's fucking us up to what they were trying to say. That some plants, that's why the Chinese medicine is set up the way it is, that you give some plants, and because the physician, right, who gives the herb, can look at the person and say, as they have a conversation, see what's wrong, they are already kind of getting a feel of what that person needs herb wise. So I'm an herbalist, and I guess I wouldn't say I'm an herbalist, but I am, right? Because I took 40 different plants and herbs over the past since 2017, figuring out what herbs worked for me, but also researching them all the molecules inside of them, the history, what they did, and like what they were used for. And I began to look at this and understand that shamanism was the journey for me, but I used the knowledge of the chakras. I used the knowledge of meditation. I used that alongside my psychedelic journey this whole time. I used my knowledge and my love for research and my love of knowledge to genuinely just get so obsessed with learning new information that all I wanted to do was learn. So then I started researching quantum physics and quantum mechanics, and like I gained a whole perspective on what I wanted to do, because I began to see that I can't just open my third eye and start speaking a bunch of, third eye and throat chakra, and then speaking a bunch of information that I've been learning. I need to work on myself as well, which is more about the grounding thing, about the root chakra and your stomach chakra and your heart chakra. Those are things that will help yourself. There's a lot of people that are waking up, right? That basically their version of waking up is when your third eye is open and when your throat chakra is open. And I guess the heart chakra too, people talk about, but not everyone is using their heart chakra to the greatest capability of having more empathy and just more, feelings in this whole thing, because we have a lot of ideas, but this is about learning how to open the chakras and then learning how to align the chakras, so then your energy, your soul can, or spirit, whatever you want to call it, can flow in and out of the body just like a radio signal. It's that your body is more like a radio antenna that's radioing your consciousness, which is on a certain frequency, in a sense. Like, imagine your body is like a radio player. If you turn the radio player one point the opposite way, it's going to be a little staticky. If you turn the radio thing a few points the opposite way, it's going to turn really staticky. And if you turn it too far, you're going to start to hear two stations at the same time type shit, but then a bunch of static in the middle. That's what's happening with us, is that once you begin to align all of these chakras, you will then be able to have full communication with yourself without the static, without the interference from other frequencies, and then you will be fully yourself. That's what this is all about. So like, I've opened up all my chakras, and this has been a lot of work because, it's been years of meditation. I used to listen to this chakra meditation thing where it's like, it would kind of make you envision this round, glowing red, ball on your root chakra spinning, and like, just, you had to like kind of work on it and imagine it and work on it, whatever. And I did that for a long time, but it wasn't just that, right? Because that's not going to do it. What's going to do it is the real work behind your chakras of what this actually means. Working on your crown chakra and your third eye, that's all about learning that you are the observer of, you are the thing in there that's observing the thing out here, including your thoughts. You're observing that. So like, it's learning that you're the observer, but then once you open up your third eye, learning you're the observer, you begin to realize, what you are as, in the universe, that we are all one, that it's this giant thing, consciousness itself, that is inside of the body flowing in and out, and, whatever. That's great and all, to learn the information about what you are and to open up your third eye or whatever. But if your throat chakra isn't aligned with your third eye, then you're going to be able to think and kind of explain it, but you're not going to be able to explain the information out correctly where other people can understand it. It's going to kind of just get thrown out instead of like explained in a better way. It's all about, you have to put the work in to learn how to communicate your ideas in your head out of your mouth fluently, because 6 years ago, I wasn't as fluent with the way that I speak, right? I couldn't exactly think and then get it out like I can now, but it's been a lot of work of me doing that. Just like I spent a lot of work meditating to get my third eye correct so I could learn how to gain control of my thoughts. Because I was so overthinking all of the time that it was so chaotic, that it was causing like so many negative feelings inside of me. Right? I think anxiety and depression in our society today have a lot to do with lack of people on the spiritual journey, right? They're not on the journey to align themselves, the journey to become themselves, so you don't feel like yourself, because all these things are closed. And like I said, it's like that frequency player that people don't feel like themselves because the dial's turned a little bit. The dial's turned a couple notches, so there's some static and maybe some interference from another frequency. Interference from the people you hang out with that then make you become a different person than the person you were meant to be. Like if you hang out with people your whole life, right? Hang out with a bunch of thugs your whole entire life, you will be a thug. If you hang out with a bunch of nerds your whole entire life, you will be a nerd, right? It is only when you begin to work on yourself that you can begin to choose what you want to be, right? So like you could choose to keep some of those traits, but it's all about choosing, because once you are aligned with yourself, you can choose yourself. It's all about gaining control of the whole entire body, because we don't have the full control of the steering wheel, right? It's like we're on cruise control or autopilot or something, where it's like our body is like a self-driving car that drives itself because we don't know how to drive it, because we're not taught instructions on how to work this thing. So the thoughts overrun that we shouldn't. Every time you want to say something but you don't, your throat chakra closes even more. You're not in tune with your feelings or emotions. You feel something but you don't know where the feeling's coming from. That's because your heart chakra is not aligned with your crown chakra. So the knowledge of where the information of where that pain came from, of where whatever, is not aligned with your heart chakra. So you feel something that you're not aware of because they're not aligned. Once you begin to align all these things, it's gonna, this is why I also say not everyone's gonna want the Kundalini awakening. That this term was so popular like a couple years ago, because like the Kundalini awakening is when all of these chakras are open, but if you don't have control, you will, if one of those chakras closes, you can be off balance still. You will be still off balance. Have a bunch of knowledge but lack grounding because you didn't work on your root chakra. So you lack the grounding to be in this world like a human, right? Because yes, we're souls inside of the body, but this is about learning how to balance it. This is why Buddha went through his journey and by the end of it realized that this is about balance. That he went to go work on his crown chakra, he went to go work on certain things, but then he began to close other chakras, which then his rest of his life was working on opening up those other chakras, learning that it's all about the balance of like one chakra helps another and they all help each other, so then you can be the best you can be. And that's what I really think this is all about, learning how to be the best you can be, because like I said in the last video, that the best me I can be might not even be good to you, but it's great to me because it's the best me I can be. I know the journey, that I know how far I've came from learning about chakras to then working on each of them to now I feel so in tuned with myself, that I'm so in tuned, so connected to the planet, yet so connected and like so out there with my crown chakra, that like my mind's so expanded but yet I'm so grounded. And I speak my mind because my throat chakra is open, but I also feel, and I don't act unless the heart chakra is working in connection with the crown chakra. I don't move unless they're working together, and they're all connected now. And it's amazing, right? Like I'm telling you, it's beautiful. But this is still work that has to be worked on every day, because your chakras can close still. Like, I hate the term chakra because it turns people off. That's why I never use that term. But just because I've never used that term does not mean that I haven't been working on my chakras. They're the energy points, the flowing points of your soul, that your body is like a river that your soul is inside of, that you need to move things out of the way so your soul can flow through it back and forth willingly, like it wants, when it wants, how it wants, without any restriction, without any whatever. But sometimes you'll have restrictions because your crown chakra will be clouded with everyone else's ideas, with doubts, with lack of self-belief, with lack of knowledge of the self, of knowing who you are. So then you don't know who you are, so then everything's so clouded that you're acting without thinking, or you're thinking without feeling, or you are maybe so grounded that you think spirituality is crazy, right? Your root chakra is so fucking grounded and everything else is so closed that you think opening up your chakra sounds crazy. It sounds like crazy talk to you. And that's because your root chakra, you're so grounded in the physical of what you see, and nothing else is open, so nothing else is connecting. Everyone's working on the chakras, whether they realize it or not. Everyone has chakras open, closed, sometimes they, whatever, and it's all about learning how to consciously do this thing, right? Like, become aware. That's what this term woke really means. I hate that woke became a trend, but I like that woke became a trend. Because shit, let's make woke a fucking trend. But the real woke is that you got to put the work in on yourself. You got to put the work in your own feelings, in your own, like, soul's power. Because everyone wants money, and they'll take money over, like, spiritual growth, not realizing that the whole reason why the physical reality exists is so souls can gain more gain more light, more substance, more energy, more knowledge, which then becomes energy, right? Like, we're just beings of energy. Currency, money is just energy. Our soul or spirit is just energy. This kundalini thing is basically when all of your chakras are open and your spirit, soul, or energy is able to go through the body willingly, like an electrical current goes through an electrical wire. But if you put something in front of the electrical wire and you stop the current, then the other half of the electrical wire is not going to get the electricity through it. That's what our body is. That's what's going on with us. We are energy. And it's all about learning how to control that energy. Thoughts create reality. That idea is based in opening up your crown chakra, opening up your third eye, and then kind of using the third eye to imagine and then create a world that you imagine. Because the imagination is just what we're inside of. Like, we're inside the human imagination. This phone was inside someone's imagination before it was a phone, right? My headband was in somebody's imagination before it was real. A computer was in somebody's imagination before it was real. Everything is. So this is all about learning about what you are, right? You're a soul, and you got to figure that shit out. I worked on meditation for years, learning how to gain control of my own thoughts, my own mind. But then I also took psychedelics alongside that, because I've learned that some psychedelics, like psychedelics, completely blast your fucking crown chakra wide the fuck open. But that's not always a good idea for people if they have no grounding, right? If your root chakra isn't grounded and you don't, like I said, people are working on their chakras and they don't know it. So some people already have a really strong root chakra, so then they do psychedelics for the first time and it was nothing, right? And even though they've never done it, never heard about it, they like just handled it well. Other people just don't sometimes because they lack that grounding. They lack these connections with themselves. And it's all about learning yourself. We're a soul inside of a body. This world is fucking crazy, right? Because our brains have psychedelic molecules in them. We run on molecules. And this is the understanding that's why in shamanism, they use certain plants to help with, there's plant for a root chakra, there's plants for your heart chakra, there's plants for whatever, because each different plant, each different molecule works on a different frequency in a sense. And that's science. Like, each different molecule is like a different frequency. And like, it's complicated, but everything is frequency, energy, and vibration. Nikola Tesla was so right about everything. So like, this is so much more complicated to explain, because opening up your chakras, if you just work on opening up your chakras, quote unquote, you'll never open up your chakras, because it's about actually maneuvering through the physical world and putting the work in to then work on your own mind. You have to watch what you're consuming, watch what you're listening to. You have to stop allowing yourself to do behaviors that are fucking you up, right? That are making the situation worse, that's disconnecting you even more. And this is all about like putting the work in for yourself. I put the work in my own spiritual journey, that like I didn't just take psychedelics. I put the work in to learn how to meditate, to then silence my mind long enough to hear what the psychedelics are trying to tell me. Because most people, when they take psychedelics, there's a lot of times they're in their head overthinking. So like, yo, that was wild, man. Not realizing that there was something trying to be said. It's like a language, right? And it's trying to be understood. And it takes time to understand that language, and it takes work. And people are scared of that word, work. But that's why we're here, to work. The soul is in a physical body, so it can put the work in to become a brighter, more powerful soul. And in our society, power, a lot of these powerful men get it from the darkness, get it from the shadow, right? And it's good to use the shadow, right? Use the shadow, but you should only be using the shadow to empower your light. Like, it's complicated, but that's why this yin and yang thing, where it's all about the balance and learning that your journey is going to be different than mine. My journey was with the psychedelics, DMT, mainly DMT, because that's where I learned how to travel, learned how to communicate with this thing, learned how to maneuver my soul in that world or whatever. And but then 40 different plants and herbs that I did, learning which plants I needed to ground myself, which plants I needed for, different chakras, which plants I needed for different things. And this was all about learning what plants work best for me, learning what psychedelics work best for me, learning what practices work best for me. And yeah, and I used the shamanic knowledge, the Hindu knowledge, mainly I guess shamanic and Hindu and philosophy. And I kind of applied all of that together to go on my own spiritual journey, right? Because Terrence McKenna basically started my psychedelic journey. But then getting into shamanism and looking at it a little differently than he does, that this is so much bigger than even any of us can fucking explain. So we can only play our piece to the puzzle. So I'm playing my piece to the puzzle, right? Expressing what I've gone through on my own journey, and walking the journey is also playing my piece. Because there's a difference between knowing the journey you're supposed to walk on and already walking the journey, right? Because some people know what they're supposed to do, but they still aren't doing it. And I knew what I was supposed to do with the spiritual journey. I knew what I was supposed to do with this, so I did it. And I made sacrifices to have to do what I just did. But those sacrifices were made because I wanted to open up all of myself. I wanted to heal myself. So I had to make sacrifices that looked bad to other people. But it was never about other people. It was always about figuring out, I'm a soul, right? I'm a spirit. I'm a thing inside of this body. But I don't know how to control this body yet. I still felt like a child. It doesn't matter, I'm 28. If I was 58 and I didn't know how to control my own thoughts, right, I would feel like a child. If I didn't know how to, whatever, I would feel young still. I still need to do the work. I did the work with myself. Now it's all about applying this knowledge, taking the third eye and taking my ideas and using the Kundalini to then thoughts create reality, this shit, and kind of live the life I was meant to live in the physical, not just feel the way I was meant to feel. Because now I feel the way I was meant to feel. Now I can think the way I was meant to think. Now I can speak the way I was meant to speak. Now I can, I'm grounded the way I was meant to be grounded, but yet my crown chakra is so open that I am so fucking ascended, right? That I am so aware of what this shit is, right? So I'm in balance with myself, and I'm okay with myself, right? I'm okay with my shadow. Me and my shadow are homies, right? I now understand it's all about the balance and becoming you. So that's what this is about, becoming you. So don't be scared to become yourself. Go down the journey, right? Because I went down the journey, and my journey is going to be different than yours. But you still are here to, in a sense, go down the journey. And why would you not want to, open up your third... if you open up your third eye, you need to also work on the root chakra to balance it out. if you are listening to this and you're like, okay, my crown chakra is open, my throat chakra is open, my whatever is open, but I need to work on my heart chakra, then work on your heart chakra, right? Like, once you can look at the information like this, you'll be able to look at yourself and be like, okay, well, it's my heart chakra that needs to be worked on. So that means you need to do things that make you feel more self-love. You need to work on loving yourself, being okay with the shit that you did wrong, as long as you learn from it and you don't do it again, right? You're doing the best you can. You're like, it's so men need to learn how to shatter, like basically when something bad happens, we need to learn how to just cry instead of trying to toughen it out, right? And because that shit disconnects our heart chakra. And like, that's a whole another video for a whole another time. But like, I just wanted to try to get this out because like, I was literally just sitting there thinking about this shit. Like, wow, I've aligned my chakras, and like, but it's not what people think. It's work. It's hard. It was lonely. Like it took a lot of loneliness to then now be able to sit alone and not feel lonely. Like I can sit alone now. I've been basically alone for like 6 months, right? I can sit alone now, for as long as I want, and I'm still going to be as happy as I am, and not feel lonely, right? But that took so much loneliness to learn how to not feel lonely. Like I had to be lonely to learn how to not be lonely. It's just one of those things. I had to be asleep to learn how to be awake. My chakras had to be closed for me to learn how to open them. This is just the reality that we're in.